Hey, welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Check out our playlist for more amazing novels. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 41, Number 1 in Yixing City. The lingering sense of crisis that had weighed on Liang Qu finally dissipated, and his spirits lifted. With a heavy purse jingling with loose silver, he felt even more cheerful. As he strolled through the bustling streets of Pingyang town, he couldn't resist the urge to buy something. Passing by a fabric shop, Liang Qu asked his two senior brothers to wait for a moment while he went inside to purchase 2 sets of ready-made cotton clothes. Cotton alone cost 300 wen per jin, and a long coat for a tall person required 3 jin of cotton. Adding 2 outerwear sets and an undershirt, Liang Qu spent just over 3 taels. The garments his senior brothers had gifted him were of such fine quality that he couldn't bear to wear them for daily training, where sweat would ruin them. So, he opted for these affordable alternatives for regular use. Taking out his money pouch, Liang Qu paid for the clothes, collected the change, and then pulled out a small silver ingot from his pouch. "Shopkeeper, could you help me exchange this ingot for 2 taels of loose silver?" The shopkeeper weighed the silver ingot, tapped it, bid it to confirm its authenticity, and then counted out 2 pieces of loose silver, weighing them in front of Liang Qu. "Sir, your silver is of excellent quality. I'll add 50 wen as a bonus," the shopkeeper said, taking an additional 50 wen in copper coins from a drawer and handing them to Liang Qu. "Thank you." Liang Qu pocketed the loose silver and copper coins, then handed over a small ingot and 1 tael of loose silver to senior brother Shang. Shang Chengsong took the money in surprise. "Junior brother, it's only 3 taels. I'd forgotten all about it until you brought it up." Liang Qu shook his head. "A loan is a loan. Borrowed money must be repaid." The robe that Shang Chengsong had gifted him was undoubtedly worth far more, but a gift was a gift, and a loan was a loan. No matter how many gifts were given, a debt was a separate matter and must be settled. Sigh. Shang Chengsong reluctantly accepted the silver. Though he didn't care about the 3 taels, Liang Qu's integrity brought him a surprising sense of warmth. After buying clothes, they continued walking and soon arrived at Wufeng Jai, the best pastry shop in Pingyang town. Liang Qu had previously purchased pastries here as a gift for his master. Now, he took out 1 tael and bought 2 more boxes, one for Li and Chen and another for Uncle Chen's family. Hu Qi chuckled. "Junior brother Liang, you seem to be in a great mood. I just wonder if any of those boxes are for us." Liang Qu scratched his head in embarrassment. He had forgotten about his senior brothers. While he wasn't as wealthy as they were, he should still make a gesture. As he was about to buy a few more boxes, Hu Qi stopped him. "Hey, I was just joking. Master gave you 10 taels, and you've already spent nearly 7. If you buy more for us, what was the point of Master giving you the money? If you really want to show your appreciation, treat us to a meal sometime in the future." Liang Qu nodded and silently made a note of it. As a personal disciple of Master Yang, he could now easily catch fish worth 200 wen a day without raising eyebrows. The fisherman would only marvel at his skills, attributing his success to his status as a disciple. If he exaggerated his prowess and claimed to catch 1 treasure fish a month, he could earn nearly 10 taels a month, or about 100 taels a year, enough to match the income of 10 farmers. Of course, fishing wasn't his only way to make money. Both Shang Chengsong and Hu Qi had well-paying roles at the martial arts school. Shang handled interpersonal matters, and Hu Qi provided instruction. They weren't volunteers. Master Yang paid them a generous monthly salary of several dozen taels. If Liang Qu ever ran out of money, he could work at the school for a while, even if his current skill level didn't allow him to teach. Helping with chores or assisting Shang Chengsong with records would still earn him a decent living. As they chatted, the trio arrived at the martial arts school. The training ground had been covered with a fresh layer of yellow soil, concealing the bloodstains from the previous night. Whatever method was used, not even a trace of the metallic scent of blood lingered. The same 50 or so familiar faces were present, except for 7, including Lu Tingkai. Only 40-odd remained. Among the students, missing sessions wasn't common. Master Yang spent 5 days at the school each month to provide guidance. This was only the second day, and his lessons covered everything from technique adjustments to strategies, qi circulation, training schedules, medicinal pairings, and various other critical topics. No one wanted to miss out unless absolutely necessary. However, one notable absence caught Liang Qu's attention: Liu Shaohui. Since yesterday, Liu Shaohui had been missing. Liang Qu doubted he was avoiding the school. As a proper martial artist, Liu Shaohui wasn't here to learn but to immerse himself in the school's environment. Training alone at home couldn't compare to sparring and discussing techniques with others. Winter wind swirled the fallen leaves, spinning them across the yellow soil. Liang Qu scanned the crowd, and they stared back at him. Draped in a black beast hide cloak, clad in a narrow-sleeved gold-trimmed robe, with a wide leather belt holding a waist token and jade pendant, and metal bracers peeking from his sleeves, Liang Qu's attire and bearing had transformed him. Though his height hadn't fully developed, his straight posture and martial air gave him an undeniable presence. Was this the same impoverished boy in rough yellow-brown hemp clothes they saw last night? The onlookers couldn't reconcile the current Liang Qu with the disheveled, downtrodden youth from yesterday. Zhao Shuiyuan stepped forward, breaking the silence. He respectfully greeted them. "Greetings, Senior Brother Hu, Senior Brother Shang, and Senior Brother Liang." Following his lead, others came forward in small groups. "Senior Brother." "Greetings, Senior Brother." No matter how long they'd trained at the school, as non-personal disciples, they had to defer to Liang Qu. So this is what 30 years on the East Bank, 30 years on the West Bank, feels like. Liang Qu felt a sudden understanding. Last night, many of these same people had laughed at his misfortune. Now, they bowed to him. Li Libo and Chen Jichang, watching from the corner by the flower bed, couldn't contain their excitement. Ah Shui is so impressive. Now that's what a real man should be like. When the two finally stepped forward to greet him, their words caught in their throats as they took in Liang Qu's elegant attire and waist token. Shang Chengsong grinned and said, "You three chat for a while. Hu and I will check on the students. Later, Hu will show you how to break the skin barrier." After the two left, Liang Qu took out a wooden box and gave it a little shake. "Want some?" Li Libo recognized the logo on the box. Though he couldn't read, he knew the 3 characters for Wufangjai by sight. "You bought pastries from Wufangjai?" "Yeah, I got them for you guys to celebrate becoming Master Yang's disciple." "Those are expensive." Chen Jichang hesitated, reluctant to accept. "Take it." "But," I said, "take it." The exchange mirrored their conversation the night before, flooding their minds with memories of Liang Qu's bloodied, unyielding figure during the fight. Before they realized it, their hands were unwrapping the box. Liang Qu teased, "What are you embarrassed about? Last time you fought over meat, I didn't see you holding back." The laughter broke through their lingering awkwardness, melting away the invisible barriers between them. Li Libo, eyes reddened with emotion, stuffed a whole sweet crisp pastry into his mouth. "MMPH. So good. I've always wondered what Wufangjai pastries tasted like, but I never had the chance to try them. MMPH. So good." Chen Jichang took a small bite, savoring it slowly. "Liang Qu, someday, you'll be the most famous person to come out of Yixing City. Ah Shui's going to be water bro, or even Master Liang, living in a big house with maids. Bah, he'll be an official someday, passing the martial exam. Are you just trying to pick a fight with me?" "Well, however you put it, Ah Shui earned all of this fair and square." Chapter 42, Entering the Water Again. After some casual conversation, Liang Qu returned to his room, changed into his training attire, and headed back to the training grounds. "Senior Brother," Liang Qu greeted. Hu Qi excused himself from teaching a few disciples and led Liang Qu to a quiet room. Inside, there was a wooden cabinet and a low table. Hu Qi took out a key, unlocked the cabinet, and retrieved a long, thin incense stick. Lighting it, he placed it in the censer atop the low table, filling the room with an indescribable pleasant fragrance. He also pulled out a few booklets from his robe. The top booklet was a detailed anatomical diagram, illustrating everything from organs to blood vessels and membranes. Beneath it were several sheets of yellow paper densely filled with text, though Liang Qu couldn't tell what they said. This anatomical booklet can be taken home for closer study. The other sheets contain prescriptions. These are medicinal formulas that complement the three-fist techniques, Huai explained. Master Yang has more than just the three-fist techniques, but this set is the best for building a solid foundation. Therefore, unless there are special circumstances, we disciples generally practice this until breaking through the flesh barrier. You seem particularly suited to the monkey fist, so you can focus on that moving forward. However, Huai's tone turned serious. These prescriptions must not be shared lightly, even with people close to you, like senior brothers Li and Chen from your hometown. If you want to prepare medicine for them, you can use the alternate versions on the back of the sheets. These contain deliberate errors in dosage and useless ingredients, producing 80% of the efficacy while safeguarding the actual formula. Liang Qu straightened his back. Understood, senior brother. I figured as much, but I needed to remind you. Huai smiled. Then, tidying the booklets and placing them neatly on the low table, he continued, breaking through the skin barrier involves stimulating the fascia and skin using your vital qi and blood energy. The qi you feel in your chest during training is the essence of the human body, the root of life. Once you break through, your skin will appear normal but will be tough as oxhide, greatly enhancing your defense. When qi and blood are activated, the effect becomes even stronger. How do I direct this energy to stimulate the fascia and skin? Liang Qu asked earnestly. It's not easy to explain or practice. I'll demonstrate, and you'll understand. Start with your monkey fist, Huai instructed. Liang Qu began practicing. By the fourth stance, Huai approached and placed a palm on his chest. Immediately, a warm current flowed from Liang Qu's chest, merging with his own qi before spreading toward his limbs. When it reached the fascia and skin, it turned into a heatwave and dissipated. His skin started to heat up, first mildly, then increasingly intense, until it was scalding hot. Sweat steamed off his body as if he were in a sauna. Don't lose focus, Huai commanded. The heat is normal. It's your qi and blood tempering your skin. Liang Qu clenched his teeth, enduring the pain without crying out. He felt his skin pulsating in time with his heartbeat, tightening and contracting. Finally, after a quarter of an hour, the burning sensation subsided, and his skin relaxed. Did you get the hang of it? I remember half of it. Good. Let's do it again. The second attempt was smoother, though Liang Qu's qi had not fully recovered. This time, his skin didn't react as strongly, allowing him to focus entirely on memorizing the technique. Gradually, he understood why qi as thick as a pinky finger was required for the breakthrough. Feeling it now? Huai asked. Without sufficient qi, the effects would be negligible, and excessive attempts could deplete your vitality. That's why Master Yang forbids teaching the technique prematurely. Many have harmed themselves in the past by pushing too soon. Now, try it on your own. Liang Qu nodded, closing his eyes. He activated a wisp of qi and guided it across his body as Huai had demonstrated. His skin warmed slightly as the energy seeped into it, completing one round of tempering. Opening his eyes, he said, "Thank you, senior brother. I've learned it. Well done. I used incense of focus to assist you just now, but without it, the process might feel more sluggish. With ample food, you should be able to break through in about 20 days. 20 days. Liang Qu was surprised but motivated. The thought of officially becoming a martial artist filled him with anticipation. When asked whether he'd continue practicing or head home, Liang Qu opted to stay, explaining he had plans to visit third brother Lu Gang later. Huai agreed and suggested they eat first. Their meal was served in a private room: a large platter of braised beef, another of boiled lamb, a plate of steamed vegetables, and a generous amount of white rice, each dish served in large basins and steaming hot. Liang Qu was astonished. This much for just the three of us? You'll understand once you break through the skin barrier. Martial artists can eat an incredible amount, Shang Chengsong replied, already seated and eating. The three of them dug in. Huai used the opportunity to critique Liang Qu's fighting style from the previous night. Your technique is lacking. Despite your physical superiority, you took more hits than necessary. I've never formally learned how to fight, Liang Qu admitted. Master Yang mentioned this. Fighting is a martial artist's primary purpose. Power alone isn't enough, technique matters. The monkey fist, for instance, incorporates unique footwork and ground techniques. Master these, and opponents like Lu Tingkai won't stand a chance, no matter their numbers. I'll remember, Liang Qu said earnestly. The three finished their meal in just over 10 minutes, clearing every dish. Liang Qu, however, only managed a small portion. So martial artists really do have enormous appetites, he mused. That evening, Liang Qu visited Lu Gang's smithy. The sprawling compound exuded a rough, practical aesthetic. Huge chimneys belched thick smoke, and the air inside was stiflingly hot. Lu Gang greeted him warmly, presenting several spear designs. One stood out, a tiger-headed spear with intricate engravings, a 12-inch blade extending from the tiger's mouth, and reinforced metal wrapping the first 2.5 feet of the shaft. This one, Liang Qu said, captivated. You have good taste, Lu Gang said approvingly. It's the best design here, but it'll take about 20 days to finish. Once it's ready, I'll apply the lacquer. Thank you, senior brother, Liang Qu said, deeply grateful. As Liang Qu prepared to explore the smithy, he suddenly froze. A realization struck him, and he quickly excused himself. Be careful on your way back, Lu Gang said, assuming the heat had driven his junior brother away. Outside, Liang Qu broke into a run toward Yixing City. Ah Fei's found another treasure fish. He thought excitedly. Chapter 43, The Great Demon. At the pier, over 100 fishing boats were crowded together, resembling fish scales spreading out from the shore. At midnight, no one ventured out with their boats. Looking up, there was no moon, no stars. The sky was darker than usual today, overcast with heavy humidity in the air and a biting cold. Liang Qu could only pray it wouldn't rain before he returned. Rainstorms usually came with strong winds, and strong winds brought high waves. Boats could capsize easily, and without someone to secure the ropes, they might drift away. Small skiffs didn't have anchors, they were stabilized by tying the boat to a large rock. It worked, but not very effectively. Even so, Liang Qu had no choice but to go, rain or no rain. The treasure fish was right in front of him, and he couldn't pass up the opportunity. Of all the treasure fish he had seen, most possessed far superior strength compared to regular fish. They swam quickly, often tearing through nets when left unchecked. It wouldn't be easy to capture them with just Can't Move and the fat catfish. The wind wasn't too strong yet. Ripples spread across the water, and the boats at the pier bumped into each other with dull thuds. Stepping across the bows of the boats one after another, Liang Qu leapt onto his small skiff. The boat sank sharply under his weight, splashing water everywhere. Ah Shui, why are you heading out to fish at this hour? Lin Songbao's voice called from the shore. The darkness was so thick that he couldn't be seen. Not fishing. I've got no food at home, Liang Qu replied. No food? Then come eat at my place. It looks like it's going to rain tonight, it's best not to go out. No need. The bigger the storm, the higher the price of fish. Take care, then. All right. Liang Qu untied the rope, grabbed the pole, and pushed the skiff free of the surrounding boats. Once in open water, he quickly switched to the oars and rowed towards his destination. This time, the treasure fish wasn't near the lotus pond but in an unfamiliar area of the lake. It took him more than half an hour of rowing to reach it. With each stroke of the oars, the water rippled, and soon Can't Move and the pig-woman-dragon surfaced. On top of Can't Move, Fist clanged its pincers together with sharp clicks. Subscribe to Chinese novel audio wave. Fist hadn't changed much, but Can't Move had grown astonishingly fast. Liang Qu, though mentally prepared, was still shocked to see its size. In just one day, Can't Move had grown from its original 2.3 meters to nearly 2.7 meters, adding half a meter in length. When he first encountered Can't Move, it was barely 2 meters long and weighed only around 30 kilograms, even lighter than Liang Qu. It couldn't even manage a death roll properly when ridden. Now, it had to weigh at least 60 kilograms, almost doubling in size. Liang Qu suspected the energy from the leftover crab monster flesh hadn't been fully digested and was still working its magic. Can't move would likely grow even larger. If Can't Move had been this size during their first encounter, Liang Qu probably wouldn't have been able to subdue it and might have met a tragic end instead. It was all a matter of timing and luck. Without being commanded, Can't Move, as a Taihua crocodile, would rarely exceed 2 meters in length. The species typically capped out at 2.2 or 2.3 meters unless given special treasure herbs or other fortuitous opportunities, possibly evolving into a spirit beast. Liang Qu had no idea how much the fat catfish had grown but figured he'd find out after catching the treasure fish. He dropped a rock anchor to stabilize the boat, stripped off his clothes, grabbed the net, and jumped into the water. It was late December, the heart of winter. Even with the Z-Spirit's water affinity, Liang Qu felt the chill. An ordinary person would be shivering uncontrollably, potentially freezing to death if they stayed in the water for too long. Fortunately, Liang Qu had adapted thanks to his increased fusion rate, and Can't Move had also developed some cold resistance due to its growth. Its activity levels hadn't increased but remained steady with only a slight decline. Together, the trio quickly located the fat catfish hiding beneath the silt. The fat catfish had grown even more impressively, surpassing 3 meters in length and reaching 3.12 meters, making it significantly bulkier. It had to weigh over 100 kilograms. However, it seemed not to have adjusted to its new size, burrowing into the silt at the same depth as before, leaving its entire blue-green back exposed and failing to camouflage itself. Liang Qu, with his mental link, spotted it effortlessly. In fact, any random fish could have done the same. Smarter, but not smart enough. Liang Qu patted the fat catfish on the back, and it didn't even flinch, happily pointing out the treasure fish's location. This kid, well, it could be trained over time. Swimming a few meters forward, Liang Qu sensed the treasure fish indicated by Huai. It was a red perch, especially large, weighing about 7 to 8 jin. Red perch and spotted tiger fish seemed to be the most common treasure fish species in the shallow waters near Shengrao Pier. Rubbing his hands together, Liang Qu didn't even need the help of the fat catfish or Can't Move. He approached the treasure fish alone, stretched out his hand, and clenched his fingers tightly. The red perch, lying in the silt, suddenly felt the surrounding water become viscous, like solidifying quicksand. It tried to struggle but could only move sluggishly, helpless as it was hooked by its gills and pulled out of the mud into Liang Qu's net. Twisting the net's opening shut, Liang Qu carried the red perch back to the skiff, placing it in the fish basket and securing the lid. Everything went smoothly. Raindrops began to fall, breaking against the water's surface and creating a misty gray haze. While his water affinity made the cold water bearable, Liang Qu found the chill of the wind unbearable. He chose not to wear his clothes, stuffing his cotton garments into a compartment instead. The rain was heavy, and waves rose over a foot high, slamming against the skiff and nearly splashing inside. The boat rocked violently. Pulling out a stone knife, Liang Qu swiftly gutted the fish, feeding the bones and scraps to the 3 creatures. Can't Move and the fat catfish devoured their portions in large gulps. Fist, perched stably on Can't Move's head, delicately pinched a fish intestine with its pincers and slurped it like noodles, unaffected by the wind and waves. The rain intensified. Everywhere, splashing water froth dominated the scene. It felt like Liang Qu was still underwater rather than above it. Even the anchor stone struggled to hold firm, and the skiff began to drift. Liang Qu had planned to practice his newly enhanced abilities underwater, but that was no longer feasible. Can't Move and Fist, return first. Guard my lotus pond and ensure no fish steal from it. Huai, you lead the way. Following the command, Can't Move and Fist disappeared into the depths, leaving the fat catfish to guide Liang Qu back to the pier. The downpour blurred everything into a blank expanse. Liang Qu couldn't discern the direction of the pier at all. Relying on the fat catfish for guidance, Liang Qu paddled hard, rain streaming down his back and dripping off his soaked hair in rivulets. Lightning flickered in the clouds, followed by low, rumbling thunder. A sudden sense of unease gripped Liang Qu. Wiping water from his face, he glanced around but saw nothing. Through the mental link, he questioned Ah Fei, but the fish didn't respond, as if the unease had been a mere illusion. The sky was as black as ink, with rain so dense that drops seemed to collide and shatter midair. Occasionally, bolts of lightning illuminated the scene, starkly lighting up the night. The unsettling feeling deepened, and Liang Qu froze in place. A jagged bolt of lightning arced across the clouds, followed by a deafening boom. Clutching his ears, Liang Qu's pupils were split by the blinding light. An immense shadow appeared for a brief moment, blotting out the blue-white flash. Its silver eyes glinted before vanishing into darkness. For a moment, Liang Qu doubted his own senses. Chapter 44, The Great Demon. The shadow, carrying unparalleled force, burst from the water and soared skyward. In that instant, lightning tore through the heavens, and the shadow moved like a wild dragon, twisting and turning in the thunderous light. Liang Qu stood frozen on the skiff, his mind blank as his heart clenched in fear. The shadow was both distant and close. Was that a flood dragon? He recalled the terrifying tales passed around the pier, rumors of a flood dragon sleeping deep within the Zhonghuai wetlands, waking once every 60 years to stir storms and chaos. No, that couldn't be right. A flood dragon, at the very least, should be elongated, shouldn't it? The fleeting image in the lightning convinced Liang Qu that this being was spherical in shape. As thoughts raced through his mind, the dense clouds suddenly fractured, spilling moonlight across the landscape. Finally, Liang Qu saw the shadow's target clearly, a massive bird engulfed in flames. With each flap of its wings, the clouds spun into vortexes, and fiery light pierced through the dark sky, as if flames burned above the clouds themselves. The heavens blazed with brilliance. Liang Qu instinctively closed his eyes, reopening them just as the two combatants collided like meteors and then ricocheted apart, each plummeting toward the lake below. The massive bird hit the water with a sharp cry. In an instant, the lake boiled. Scalding steam erupted skyward, gushing and spreading as if an underwater volcano had detonated. Water vapor exploded outward, but quickly cooled and condensed in the surrounding air, forming a visible band of white mist. Under the moonlight, the mist churned across the lake's surface, rolling and expanding. The sudden temperature clash created a violent airflow over the lake, alternating between hot and cold, causing rapid expansions and contractions. Wind surged into a tempest. Liang Qu's soaked hair whipped in the gale as he struggled to keep his balance. The sphere-like shadow also crashed into the lake, like a deity casting a boulder into the depths. As the massive form sank, the lake surface surged like a colossal lung, contracting and expanding with thunderous booms. Each expansion unleashed towering waves. The surface split open, unleashing millions of tons of scalding water in all directions, rushing like a natural disaster. A towering wave loomed closer by the second. In the moments before it struck, Liang Qu felt cold sweat drench his body. With eyes wide in shock, he drew on a surge of inexplicable strength, jumping with all his might to land on the bow of his skiff. The skiff tipped violently, its pointed prow momentarily blocking the fractured moonlight. Boom! An unstoppable force of countless tons of lake water crashed into the skiff, roaring and surging. The world around him howled with the collision of currents and the clamor of rushing waves. Everything on the skiff slid downward as immense pressure bore down. Liang Qu's knees threatened to buckle. His long hair, blown backward moments ago, now swept forward as the wind whipped it wildly. He couldn't see anything clearly, relying only on instinct to hold on. He pressed his feet hard against the deck, grabbed the boat's edge, and shielded the fish basket with his body, using his weight to pin it down. His muscles trembled violently. He couldn't tell whether the vibrations came from the lake's surface or his own body, pushed to its limits. Crack, crack. The wooden edge of the skiff splintered under Liang Qu's grip. Holding a handful of jagged wood, he tightened his grip, then grasped a new section of the edge. The speed was dizzying. Every muscle in his body felt on the verge of snapping. The surroundings blurred into a whirl of light and shadow as his body reacted purely on instinct. He sensed himself rising, skiff and all, precariously balanced as they were lifted high. A single misstep could hurl him downward to certain death. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Liang Qu forced air into his lungs, feeding his strained muscles with oxygen. He tried to control the water's flow, his stamina depleting at an alarming rate. Each time the waves threatened to capsize the boat, a surge of water would stabilize the stern, maintaining an eerie balance as if he were locked in a grueling tug of war. Boom! At last, the massive wave farthest from the battlefield began to break apart, dispersing into smaller flows that fanned outward. The skiff, once tilted precariously, slowly descended and settled back onto the water's surface. Plop, plop. Small white fish flopped around on the deck. Cough, cough. Liang Qu collapsed into the cabin, coughing and vomiting. He wasn't sure how much water he had swallowed, but his stomach felt bloated. Ugh! It was as if a switch had been flipped. His stomach convulsed violently, and Liang Qu retched like a faucet turned on full blast. For a full minute, he vomited until his stomach was empty. His entire body ached. His head throbbed. Every muscle and bone screamed in pain. Any attempt to move caused uncontrollable trembling. The overwhelming soreness felt as though he were being constricted by a massive python, his blood vessels crushed to the point of collapse. Despite the agony, Liang Qu had survived. Another wave slammed against the skiff, causing it to shake violently. Liang Qu's chin struck the deck, but he felt no pain. With the last of his strength, he rolled over onto his back, lying flat on the deck and gulping air like a suffocating fish. He took in deep breaths, desperately trying to recover. Only after several minutes did his sluggish mind begin to process what had happened. Was that enormous shadow one of the legendary great demons of the Huai wetlands? Liang Qu had always heard of great demons but never encountered one. He hadn't expected to witness a battle between two of them firsthand, a clash so fierce it scattered the clouds and stopped the rain. It was terrifying. Though the combatants seemed close, they were actually far away. Even so, the moment he turned and saw the shadow, a chilling fear gripped his heart, and his body trembled uncontrollably. The aftermath of their battle. No, it wasn't even the aftermath, merely the splash from the great demon hitting the water was enough to nearly destroy him and his boat. What would it be like to face such creatures up close? A true doomsday scenario. No wonder the fishermen of the Huai wetlands passed down warnings about venturing into deep waters. Such advice must have been forged from generations of bloody lessons, etched into their very being. Could Master Yang handle such a spherical great demon? For the first time, Liang Qu understood why underwater resources were so hard to obtain. The aquatic environment was already hostile to humans. Against such great demons, even a peak elephant perfection martial artist would struggle to prevail. As for the fiery bird, its chances seemed even slimmer. Although both fell into the water, the fire and the bird, two traits ill-suited to the Huai wetlands, were clearly countered by the water-dwelling great demon. Judging by its size, Liang Qu suspected the creature was a giant toad. The entire encounter seemed to follow a straightforward script. The toad great demon, sensing the bird's presence, leapt from the water to catch its prey, slamming it into the lake to fight on its home turf. It was a sure victory. Still lying in the cabin, Liang Qu faintly heard a mournful bird cry. Mustering some strength, he crawled up to look, but all he saw was thick mist and the faintest flicker of firelight. He shook his head. Time to leave. Not all excitement was worth chasing. Liang Qu had had enough. Ignoring the soreness in his muscles, he picked up the oar to retreat. Wait, what about Ah Fei? Was Ah Fei safe? Splash. Sensing Liang Qu's call, the fat catfish surfaced with a trembling body, sending ripples through the water. It seemed utterly terrified but unharmed. The storms and waves had been filtered through dozens of meters of water, leaving only gentle ripples. Ah Fei was simply scared. Good, lead me back to the pier. Let's go home. Ah Fei eagerly complied, guiding Liang Qu's skiff back. After about 15 minutes, Liang Qu finally glimpsed the riverbank through the mist, safe and sound. The massive waves had pushed him far from his original location. Ironically, this had shortened his return journey. Upon reaching the shore, Liang Qu tasked the fat catfish and can't move with guarding his lotus fields before heading alone toward the pier. The pier was pitch black. Every lantern had been extinguished, and not a soul stirred near the fishing gear rentals. The once neatly arranged boats were now crammed together in a chaotic mess, crushed and tangled by the storm's fury. With no other option, Liang Qu tied his skiff's rope to the outermost wooden post of the pier. He checked the condition of his vessel, finding only a fish basket and a ballast stone left intact. Their bulk had kept them pinned under his weight, preventing them from being swept away. His fishing net and stone knife were gone, along with everything else. Even the waterproof compartment wasn't spared. Inside, the small stove lay scattered in pieces, and his newly purchased cotton jacket was thoroughly soaked. The lid of the compartment was nowhere to be found, leaving the entire interior flooded with dirty water. Lifting the heavy, sodden jacket, Liang Qu felt a pang of despair. The cotton padding would be clumped and ruined. There was no way it would remain warm or comfortable. Still, there was a silver lining. The fish basket was intact, and the red perch was still inside. At least this venture wasn't a total loss. Chapter 45, Rapid Progress. The storm raged on, and the streets were deserted, shrouded in darkness. No one could see anyone else. Liang Qu cradled the scattered remnants of his small stove in his soaked cotton jacket. Dragging his exhausted body, he finally returned to the shore. From the nearby cluster of reed beds, he pulled 2 dry stalks of yellowed reeds, shredded them into fine threads, and threaded them through the gills of the red blood perch. Holding the treasure fish, he headed straight home. Once home, Liang Qu shut the door, reassembled the small stove, and started a fire with added kindling. When the water boiled, he dropped in pieces of fish. As the fish neared doneness, he got up to check that all cracks in the house were sealed tightly. Then, he retrieved a stick of incense of focus and lit it. The room gradually filled with a pleasant fragrance, and Liang Qu felt his focus sharpening, his thoughts becoming more agile. Despite the fatigue dragging his body toward sleep, the scent reinvigorated him, as if he had awoken naturally after a good night's rest. With the incense filling the air, Liang Qu quickly fished out the meat and, disregarding the heat, consumed it. He then began practicing ape fist. Essence of the waters plus 3.5. The blood vitality he had consumed earlier during the day was refined anew, circulating through his body. Liang Qu could feel the soreness in his muscles ease, leaving a refreshing comfort behind. In martial cultivation, qi and blood represent a warrior's physical strength. Yet, warriors are not strong because of their abundant qi and blood. Rather, the strength of their physical constitution allows them to condense sufficient vitality. Qi and blood are not the cause of strength, they are the result. This result, in turn, feeds back into the cause. This cycle is self-sustaining and endless. As long as the body does not experience major depletion, any loss of qi and blood can be replenished swiftly. When energy is abundant, this process can occur more than twice in a single day. Huai had estimated that Liang Qu's skin barrier breakthrough would take about 20 days, equating to roughly 50 rounds of skin tempering to achieve the qualitative transformation. As the food in his stomach was digested, surging energy was extracted from the fish meat. Strands of qi and blood, initially as thin as a hair, began merging. In mere minutes, they thickened, from hair thin to chopstick thick, then to the size of a pinky, and finally reaching the girth of an index finger. Taking a deep breath of the incense's aroma, Liang Qu followed the method Huai had given him during the day. With mental focus, he guided the qi and blood to circulate and diffuse. The incense of focus made the process exceptionally smooth. Soon, the energy transformed into a warm current that melted into his skin and fascia. His skin flushed red and radiated intense heat for nearly half an hour before it subsided. Exhaling a deep breath, Liang Qu released a rolling stream of white mist from his mouth and nose. His previously taut skin relaxed. Though it remained soft to the touch, it seemed significantly tougher when struck. After this session of skin tempering, Liang Qu didn't stop. He continued refining his qi and blood. The energy from the red blood perch wasn't nearly exhausted yet. However, he extinguished the incense beforehand. This stuff was precious. According to senior brother Hu, a single stick cost half a tael of silver. The room was tightly sealed, and the lingering fragrance was enough to stretch its usage. Joining Yang Dongshang as a disciple had been a turning point in Liang Qu's life, elevating his status and living conditions. Still, his master wasn't family. Liang Qu was immensely grateful for what Yang Shi taught him, but he understood he couldn't rely on others for everything. At his current rank as a new disciple, his senior brothers naturally offered plenty of guidance. Yet, Liang Qu didn't want to become a parasite. After all, if he had to depend on others for every resource, how was that any different from being a leech? Forget what others thought, Liang Qu himself would never accept that. He had hands, feet, and even an extraordinary talent. Why should he fall behind? The fish meat continued to be digested, surging energy repeatedly refined into qi and blood. His crimson skin hadn't fully returned to its normal color before it stretched taut once again. Through countless rounds of tempering, it grew increasingly exceptional. By the time dawn broke, Liang Qu had condensed his qi and blood 28 times, continuously tempering his skin and fascia. The red blood perch's energy was finally exhausted, with nothing left to extract. Originally needing 50 rounds of skin tempering over 2 weeks, Liang Qu now required only 22 more sessions, a timeline shortened to just under 10 days. The cost, however, was his utter exhaustion. Hearing faint noises of activity, carts rolling over the green stone slabs, Liang Qu collapsed onto his bed, fast asleep. When he woke again, it was still dark. For a moment, he was disoriented, unsure of the day or year. After a pause, he remembered. He had slept through the entire day and into the night. It was late, too late for the martial arts school to be open. Finding a senior brother wasn't an option now. Hearing footsteps outside, Liang Qu guessed that some fishermen were preparing to set sail. It was the perfect time to head to the water and hone his aquatic skills. Clenching his fists, he felt a thrill run through him as his fist sliced through the air with vigor. The Z-spirit fusion rate was nearing 50%. Liang Qu had a strong premonition that surpassing 50 might bring about a transformative breakthrough. Meanwhile, his skin barrier was on the verge of advancing, a step closer to becoming a true warrior. While warriors weren't yet martial artists, the gap between them and ordinary people was massive, much like the difference between a scholar and an imperial examination graduate. Achieving this status was a dream for many. With progress on all fronts, himself, Fei, and Can't Move, all advancing steadily, Liang Qu felt elated. The two beasts required less essence of the waters than he did and were already halfway through their evolution. It wouldn't be long before Liang Qu ruled the shallow waters of the Zhonghuai wetlands, as long as no monsters from the deeper waters showed up. He would truly be the king of the shallow regions, the #1 in Yixing City. Dressing up, Liang Qu followed the path to the pier. The temperature had dropped even further compared to the day before. Yesterday's rainstorm might have signaled the arrival of colder weather. When he reached the shore, the scattered lanterns provided faint illumination, much brighter than the previous night. Even so, many boats remained moored at the pier, about half the usual number. Groups of fishermen gathered in 3s and 5s at the tea houses near the shore, their murmurs filling the air. Just as Liang Qu was about to untie his boat, a voice called out to him. Shui, are you heading out? Turning around, he saw Li Dekong, the father of his fellow disciple Li Libo, approaching. Liang Qu stopped by the shore. That's right, Uncle Li. What's the matter? It's nothing major. I just wanted to ask if you've seen my boy. He hasn't been home for 2 days now. Is he still at the martial arts school, or is he off fooling around somewhere? Before Liang Qu could respond, another voice chimed in. Chen Jicheng's father, Chen Cheng, had joined the conversation. Yeah, my boy hasn't come back either. I thought about heading to Pingyang town to look for them but figured that the 3 of you are always together. I didn't think they'd get lost, so I let it slide. Since you're here, I thought I'd ask. Liang Qu quickly recalled the situation from the day before. Oh, they're both still at the school. We stayed late last night because our performance caught the eye of one of the martial instructors. He cleared out a room for us in the courtyard so we could focus on training without distractions. The truth was, Li Libo and Chen Jicheng had both been injured, most noticeably on their faces. Embarrassed to return home and worry their parents, they had asked Liang Qu to relay this white lie on their behalf. However, after encountering the 2 great demons the previous night, Liang Qu had been so shaken that the task completely slipped his mind. Now reminded, he quickly made up for the oversight, subscribed to Chinese novel audio wave. As for his own promotion to personal disciple, Liang Qu decided to keep it quiet for now. Wealth unshared might as well be worn like fancy robes at night. Though Liang Qu wanted to boast, the timing wasn't right. Seeing the other fishermen milling around, he refrained from making a scene. Chen Cheng and Li Dekong, hearing Liang Qu's explanation, beamed with pride. They began calling out to the nearby fishermen, draping their arms around them as they shouted, "Did you hear that? My boy caught the eye of a martial artist. My boy's been chosen." "Yes, yes, we heard. Congratulations. I always said that Huai, Jia, and Bo were different from the other kids in our village, sharpest boys in all of Yixing City. Look, now they're destined for great things. Hey, has our city ever produced any warriors before? And now there are 3. Maybe a few, but they probably moved to Pingyang town and never came back." The surrounding fishermen's expressions shifted noticeably. Even if they felt a pang of envy, they had no choice but to offer their congratulations aloud. "Haha, congratulations. Once they become true warriors, I'll treat you all to drinks." Li Dekong and Chen Cheng were so overjoyed they wanted to tell the entire pier about their son's success. Liang Qu, accustomed to such displays from his past life, shook his head with a smile. He started for his boat again but was intercepted by Li Dekong. "Shui, I almost forgot to tell you, do you know about last night's rainstorm?" "I do. What about it? Didn't you hear? The river god revealed itself last night." Liang Qu was taken aback. "River god?" "Yes. The river god leapt from the river and seized a blazing giant bird. It shattered the heavens. You'd best wait a couple of days before heading out. We need to hold a proper river god festival first. Let the village elders and wealthy households take the lead. Each family should contribute something to appease the deity. Otherwise, no one will feel at ease setting sail." The surrounding fishermen nodded in agreement. "That's right. If the river god has appeared, it must be honored. Angering the deity could cost us more than just a poor catch, it might bring calamity." Chapter 46, Worship the River God. Sacrifice, and we have to pay. Hearing that money was involved, Liang Qu instinctively frowned. In the past, due to rudimentary fishing tools, fishermen's lives were at great risk during storms. As a result, they revered mythical sea gods as protectors of life and bringers of bountiful harvests. Sacrifices occurred frequently, roughly twice a year, once in the winter-spring season and once on the 6th of June. The winter-spring sacrifices were not fixed, often prompted by incidents like last night's. But to actually pay money, Liang Qu had figured it out. The so-called river god that Uncle Li mentioned was none other than the great demon he had seen last night. Of course, to ordinary people, there was no difference, it was all just powerful beings beyond human control. He wasn't too willing, but there was no way around it. Refusing to pay for a river god sacrifice. Even someone like Bald Zhang wouldn't dare pull a stunt like that. "Uncle Li, how much do we have to pay this time?" Li Dekong thought for a moment. "This time, there haven't been any deaths reported. If there's one able-bodied man in the household, it should be about 100 wen. That's usually the standard. It's only during the 6th of June sacrifices that they ask for more, when the rituals are more elaborate." Liang Qu sighed in relief. The 3 taels of silver Master Yang had given him were more than enough. However, he still needed to take the boat out. Though there were plenty of boats docked along the shore, not all of them were in use. Many at the pier were simply people desperate enough to make a living, even if it meant risking being eaten by the so-called river god. Facing Li Dekong's good intentions, Liang Qu offered an apologetic smile. "Ah, you stubborn kid, can't you just wait a couple of days?" "Uncle Li, maybe you're unaware, but last night, Water Bro went fishing in the pouring rain, and he came back just fine. He probably even saw what that great demon looks like," Lin Songbao called out loudly as he walked over. "Songbao, don't spout nonsense, it's the river god." "The river god." A fisherman immediately grew anxious and tried to cover Lin Songbao's mouth. But Lin Songbao dodged and ran away, evading the hand entirely. "What's the difference? Last year, wasn't it that massive broad fish? Taller than a building and way bigger. You all called it the river god. And the year before that, it was that water tiger fish with teeth bigger than a person, couldn't even wrap your arms around one. Every year there's something. I've never seen the same river god twice since I was born. Wouldn't all these river gods end up fighting each other? They're just great demons, aren't they? Li Dekong clutched his chest in frustration. No reverence, absolutely no reverence. Nearby, Chen Cheng realized something and quickly asked, Shui, did you really go fishing last night? Yes. Liang Qu didn't avoid the question, it wasn't anything worth hiding. Plenty of people must have seen the great demon, or the news wouldn't have spread so quickly. I was pretty close to it last night. When that river god fell into the water, the waves were huge. If I hadn't held on tightly, my boat would have capsized. I hurried back after that, not a single fish caught. Li Dekong let out a breath of relief. That was dangerous, really dangerous. Good thing you weren't too close, or you could have been eaten. Lin Songbao burst out laughing. You're exaggerating. People are tiny, and great demons are massive. Eating a person would be like eating a grain of rice. I'd get tired just opening my mouth that wide. Li Dekong frowned. How can you talk like that? Lin Songbao pretended not to hear, digging at his ear. He then leaned against Liang Qu. Water bro, I've been waiting for you forever. If your skiff wasn't still at the pier, I'd have gone to your house to look for you. Water bro. Liang Qu was slightly surprised. Lin Songbao had never called him that before. Even the day they sold fish together, when Lin said he'd help him round up the numbers in the future, he still just called him Shui. After all, Lin Songbao was older than him. So you've been waiting for me. What's up? Hee, just wanted to ask if you've got any free time lately. My father wants to invite you for a meal. What do you think? He says you can pick the time and place. Did you hear something? I wouldn't know, Lin Songbao said, scratching his head. My dad didn't tell me anything. He says I have a big mouth and can't keep secrets. If you didn't say anything, he wouldn't tell me either. But he did say you're going places in Pingyang town and told me to call you water bro when I saw you. Liang Qu seemed to understand. Yixing City and Pingyang town were close, separated by only a dozen or so li. But the events of that night were relatively contained. Only the martial arts school disciples knew about it, and most of them lived on site, so the news would take some time to spread. It was clear that Lin Songbao's father, Lin Di, who managed the fishing gear rentals, had his own sources of information. Lin Songbao urged, so, are you in or not? Just give me an answer, and I'll go tell my dad. Tomorrow night works. Anywhere is fine. Just let me know once it's decided. Liang Qu didn't refuse. He missed his black-sailed boat. Perhaps this meal was an opportunity to get it back. The skiff was too small and lacked a canopy. Whenever it rained, the cabin would flood. It couldn't compare to the comfort of his black-sailed boat. All right, I'm heading out now. I'll come find you tomorrow morning. Sure. The river was calm, its surface reflecting the brilliance of stars and moonlight. The oars churned the water, producing a steady splashing sound. Thump, thump, thump. The oars struck the water, their dull rhythm carrying far across the rippling surface. The water's surface broke as Can't Move emerged, its scales glinting cold and hard in the moonlight, blending with the shimmering glow of the ripples. In just one day, Can't Move had grown even larger, now reaching an impressive 3 meters, enough to make any Zhonghuai fisherman shudder in fear. Few would believe it was merely a taihua crocodile. At that moment, Can't Move floated serenely by the boat, with a small crab monster perched atop its back, tapping its claws against the crocodile's carapace. The crab monster blew bubbles, its once milky white shell now tinged with a faint bluish hue. The sound of its tapping carried a metallic quality, and it had grown noticeably larger. What was once the size of a fist was now bigger by a fair margin. After witnessing a true great demon last night, Liang Qu realized that the crab monster was merely at the bottom of the spirit beast hierarchy. Its rapid growth, particularly with ample nourishment, was likely essential for survival in the competitive deepwater regions. Perhaps the crab monster had ventured into the shallow waters seeking a safer place to lay its eggs and hatch its young. At its current rate of growth, the little, fist, would be functional in 2 months, no longer just a decorative accessory on Can't Move's head. Interestingly enough, Can't Move's scales made it easy for Fist to cling to its body, the two almost inseparable. On the other hand, Fat Catfish's smooth, blue back was too slippery for anything to stay put. Splash! Speak of the devil, Fat Catfish surfaced, water streaming off its sleek back as it tilted its head and spat a water jet at Fist, knocking it into the water. Seeing its success, Fat Catfish flipped over, exposing its white belly as if laughing uproariously. Its long whiskers quivered with glee. Fist, now in the water, curled its lower body like a lobster and launched itself at Fat Catfish's face, clamping down on one of its whiskers with its claws. Fat Catfish, whose whiskers were fleshy, flinched in pain and thrashed about in the water. Its massive frame had surpassed the 3-meter mark, now reaching 3.3 meters. Beneath its tough skin lay powerful muscles, granting it explosive strength that made it untouchable by other fish. At this moment, it thrashed like a water dragon, creating a startling display that sent water splashing onto the boat. Only Can't Move remained calm, as still as a meditating monk. Seeing the two beasts' antics getting out of hand and water pooling in the cabin, Liang Qu shouted for them to stop. Both beasts ceased their squabbling immediately. "Fatty, go catch some fish for me. Try to get more valuable ones, carp, yellowfish, you know the kind." Fat Catfish flicked its whiskers in acknowledgement. The two beasts' growth had brought with it increased intelligence. Now, they could not only identify special treasure fish but also distinguish expensive species. As Master Yang's personal disciple, Liang Qu thought it wouldn't be too much to pull in a 300 yuan haul of fish in one outing, would it? Chapter 47, Great Demon Feather. Underwater, a sleek figure darted swiftly, weaving back and forth through the water. Crabs on the rocky outcrop waved their pincers menacingly, as if to bolster their presence. 2 intervals later, the figure surfaced for a quick breath before diving back down. The activity time has stretched to roughly 2 intervals now, Liang Qu estimated, his spirits soaring. In his previous life, the world record for static underwater breath holding was 24 minutes, a feat achievable only in a near-torpor, turtle breath state, making it an extreme rarity. Yet now, he could easily last 30 minutes in a high oxygen consumption state of rapid swimming. This level of endurance far surpassed that of even seasoned martial artists. My sensing range has expanded to 10 meters, with detailed detection up to 5 meters. It's grown much larger, and my stealth is significantly enhanced. Fish won't notice me unless I'm within a meter. The larger the sensing range, the greater his water control. Within his detailed detection radius, controlling water felt as natural as moving his own arm. Thus, every increment in sensing range was effectively a boost to his water manipulation abilities. Liang Qu spread his fingers, channeling his will. Invisible currents swirled above his palm, morphing into various shapes. He formed a vortex, which spun faster and tighter, shrinking from half a person's height to just the size of a human head. Even so, achieving a water blade remained a distant goal. At first, Liang Qu believed that developing a water blade would be an immensely powerful technique. But he soon realized it was a low-efficiency skill. His current water control could exert a force of about 300 jin, approximately 150 kilograms, compressible into 10 liters of water, translating to a force of 30 jin, about 15 kilogram per liter. While this was impressive for tasks like grabbing fish or manipulating objects, it was laughably far from the force required for a functional water blade. A low-pressure water blade at 30 megapascals could only cut through foam or wood, requiring 300 kilograms of force per square centimeter. Cutting flesh needed at least 50 megapascals, while slicing steel demanded 100 megapascals, along with abrasive sand to aid the cut. It was utterly unfeasible. Embedding blades or steel needles into the vortex might provide some lethality, but the cost was prohibitive. Every piece of metal had to be laboriously hand-forged. Mass production simply wasn't an option in this era. Liang Qu suspected that even the Z-spirit of the water langur, its blue-tier evolution, would struggle to achieve pure water blade formation. Such feats might only be possible at the purple-tier evolution, the water king monkey. Even then, direct compression to explode enemies with water pressure seemed more practical. He pondered whether the Z-Spirit might evolve into a form with specialized skills at higher fusion levels. This thought gave him hope. After all, he sensed that something significant would occur once his fusion rate passed 50%. Controlling blood, composed of 85% water, was another matter Liang Qu had explored. He had even managed a successful trial during a sparring match at the martial arts school, forcing an attacker's blood to reverse flow for a counterstrike. However, his ability was limited to major arteries like the aorta. Smaller vessels and the spleen, with its dispersed blood storage, were beyond his reach. Liang Qu had also observed that when in proximity to senior brothers Hu and Shang, he couldn't sense the blood flow in their hearts within his detection radius. Could this be due to Zheng's unbroken blood barrier, or perhaps the skin barrier obstructing his perception? He had no definitive answer yet. As for controlling his own blood to amplify his vitality, Liang Qu had considered it but never dared to experiment. The risks were too great. One misstep could lead to severe consequences, including potential lifespan reduction. His goals in martial arts and fishing were to live longer and better, not to gamble with his life. Opening a mental link to the Cauldron of the Waters, he reviewed his current status. Cauldron Master, Liang Qu. Refined Z-Spirit. Water Monkey White, fusion rate, 49%. Essence of the Waters, none. River Affinity, none. Commanded Water Beasts, Taihua Crocodile, Six-Whiskered Catfish, Stone-Owl Crab. Evaluation, the Water Monkey Z-Spirit originates from the Great Huai Whirlpool Lord. Incomplete activation, inherently weak and insignificant. Having absorbed the red perch, his Z-Spirit fusion rate had reached 49%, nearing the halfway mark. Even the evaluation had changed slightly, reflecting incomplete activation, instead of insufficient activation. The white tier Z-Spirit Water Monkey was just the beginning. Above it lay the blue tier Water Langur, the purple tier Water King Monkey, and potentially even greater beings like Wujichi. Liang Qu's current blood control capabilities were limited to ordinary humans, but with continued progress, his potential seemed boundless. From a starving orphan to a true disciple at the Tiger Hunt realm within 2 months, and now on the cusp of breaking the skin barrier to become a true martial artist, Liang Qu felt a deep sense of satisfaction. When the summer tax collectors came in May, would they dare kick over his measure bucket again? Feeling buoyed, Liang Qu practiced water manipulation for a while before turning his attention to the lotus roots. He had been experimenting with propagating treasure lotus by planting cuttings in different locations. Unfortunately, none had survived, all rotting away in the water. It seemed that only the current area's water supported their growth. He had considered digging up the mud to check for buried secrets, but feared there might be nothing there, and losing the treasure lotus would outweigh any potential gain. Treasure lotus had played a crucial role in restoring his malnourished body during his early days of hunger, enabling his subsequent progress. Recently, he had buried fragments of the crab monster's shell in the mud, hoping it might aid their growth. So far, there were no noticeable changes. The fragments remained intact, showing no signs of decomposition. After confirming that the lotus plants were unaffected by the crab monster's earlier damage, Liang Qu began clearing rocks to expand their growth area. Just as he was about to surface for air, a flicker of light in the distant darkness caught his attention. A strange, oscillating glow approached quickly. Simultaneously, his mental link's directional sense indicated that his 2 beasts were also heading in that direction, seemingly in pursuit. What now? These 2 didn't drag something they couldn't handle back here, did they? Liang Qu turned to flee, but snippets of thoughts like hot, scalding, and cooked filtered through the mental link. Intrigued, he paused. As the beasts drew closer, he realized they weren't bringing an enemy but a glowing object. Their method of transport was peculiar. They were tossing it back and forth using their foreheads. Watching them reminded Liang Qu of how he juggled hot roasted sweet potatoes between his hands. The beasts dropped the object in front of him, a massive, glowing red feather, which slowly sank to the bottom of the water. Liang Qu's eyebrow arched. Was this a feather from a great flame bird demon? Chapter 48, Hot Feather, Cold Winter. Where did you get this? From underwater. Just floating around. You grabbed it because it glowed. Liang Qu had taught the two beasts how to identify treasure fish, anything that looked different from regular fish, whether in color or shape. This advice had stuck in their minds. So when they saw a glowing feather, they figured it wasn't a fish but still thought it was something valuable and brought it back. Technically, they weren't wrong. The feather was enormous, 3 feet long and a foot wide. Liang Qu tried to touch it, but the searing heat radiating from it forced him back. No wonder Can't Move and Ah Fei didn't dare to carry it back with their mouths. It's like handling a hot sweet potato, he muttered. A massive feather with astonishing heat. Liang Qu immediately thought of the flaming giant bird from the battle between the two monsters last night. Without a doubt, this feather had fallen from its body, drifting until it was discovered by the two beasts. Good job, Brother Frog. Killing a big monster and leaving me some soup to enjoy, Liang Qu chuckled. He used his water manipulation to wrap the feather, letting the heat dissipate before attempting to touch it again. The feather's stem was as hard as iron, with a cold metallic sheen, glowing faintly in the dark. The feather itself was soft to the touch, though far too hot to handle without cooling it down with water first. What use could a feather have? Birds and beasts lack the essence of the waters, so it wasn't something he could absorb. Even using it as a hand warmer would risk setting clothes on fire. Liang Qu was stumped. But one thing was certain, anything from a powerful monster was bound to be precious. He decided to bring it back and consult his master and senior brothers. Well done. If you find anything unusual, even if it's not a fish, feel free to bring it back, he praised the beasts. The two beasts spun around joyfully in the water, churning up waves. After some splashing, Liang Qu surfaced and noticed it was time to head back. He instructed Can't Move to guard the lotus roots while Ah Fei was tasked with exploring the nearby waters. He emphasized shallow areas, looking for sunken ships, human artifacts, treasures, treasure plants, or even more parts of that giant water beast. Liang Qu was eager to discover just how much essence of the waters a piece of such a monster could contain. Not limiting exploration to Yixing City, he directed them to check the neighboring Yunjiang Wharf and Pingyang Town waters as well. With Ah Fei's enormous size, as long as it avoided the deepwater areas, there was little risk. Dragging the feather back to the skiff, Liang Qu glanced into the waterproof compartment. Alongside the usual fish, he had 2 carp, a yellowfish, and a tiger fish, all excellent catches. By the time he returned to the pier, daylight had fully broken. Liang Qu sold his haul to Lin Songbao. Not much today, huh? Just 2 baskets. Lin Songbao said as he helped unload the fish baskets into the fish stall. However, opening one made his jaw drop. Whoa, so many great fish. A yellowfish, 2 carp, and a tiger fish. Did you raid a fish den? Just lucky today, Liang Qu replied. Impressive. Winter's usually when people catch fewer fish, but you keep hauling in more. Lin Songbao gave him a thumbs up. 346 wen total. How about I give you 3 jian of silver? Lin Songbao wasn't foolish. His father hadn't said anything, but he knew something extraordinary had happened to Liang Qu. His offer of 3 jian was a generous discount, worth at least 360 wen in normal coin exchange. Much obliged. No problem. By the way, since you're here, I don't have to go looking for you. The tavern reservation is set, Lengyan Tavern, Earth Character Room C. My father asked if you'd like a carriage to pick you up tonight. Liang Qu planned to show the feather to his senior brothers, so he declined. No need. I'll be heading into town anyway. All right then, here's your money. Pocketing the silver, Liang Qu returned to the boat. Wrapping the feather in a water-soaked hemp cloth, he started home. Passing by the fish stall, he overheard a conversation. Songbao, weigh it again. Look how big this fish is. Uncle Tiger, I already weighed it, 53 wen. Deducting the 45% for the boat rental, that's 30 wen. This is too little. Songbao, come on, round it up a bit. My boy's only 8 years old, still growing. You've seen him, haven't you? I can't. Last time I added 5 wen for you, my father scolded me. Besides, you know the Yunjiang Wharf takes a 52% cut. Ah, fine. The streets of Greenstone seemed duller than 2 months ago. Every winter, the colors faded as though everything was frozen into retreat. On the muddy alleys flanking the main road, more women with waxy yellow faces huddled in worn coats, shrinking on the steps. Whenever the stone road creaked, they'd glance up. Liang Qu noticed a girl his age smiling at him from the steps. Her malnourished face was thin and sallow, her hair as dry as straw. He looked away, expressionless, and walked past. In addition to the women, many children gathered in the alleyways. Older ones, around 13 or 14, looked worried, while younger ones, barely 5 or 6, played finger games with long, dripping noses. Old women begged along the streets. Dmn it all. Liang Qu sighed heavily, white mist pouring from his mouth. He stood still for a long time before calling out, "Hey." He placed an oiled paper bag on the ground and walked off. "What's this?" A boy picked up the bag with his fingers, opened it, and shouted, "Ah! Buns. So many buns, over 10. Wow, hot buns. Don't fight. There's enough for everyone. I'll divide them. Ah dee, you're the youngest, so you get 2. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. In other alleyways, Liang Qu placed down more oiled paper bags and quickly left. Dmn it, what a pain. 2 Qian of silver, gone. A surge of inexplicable frustration welled up in Liang Qu. No reason, no target, no purpose, just anger. Perhaps he was angry at his excessive kindness, or at this cruel world, or at those pitiful wretches for lingering in his sight. His veins felt like they were on fire. The cold around him was intense, but he burned like a red-hot ember. Taking deep breaths, Liang Qu calmed himself. Back home, he tossed the nearly dry, heat-wrapped feather into the icy water jar. The ice melted quickly, and the feather, cloth and all, was submerged. Liang Qu began his skin training routine. The day of barrier breaking was fast approaching, just 1 step away. Everything he had now could be described as a dog flaunting its master's power, but once he became a true martial artist, his transformation would be self-earned, comparable to a scholar achieving recognition. Qi and blood surged through his body, flowing to the outermost layer of his skin. After a while, his flushed skin returned to a healthy red. Liang Qu could feel his body toughen slightly. Though it looked unchanged to the touch, it would transform under attack, becoming incredibly resilient. The progress lifted his mood. He grabbed the pastries he had bought earlier and headed to Chen Qingzhang's house. Fortunately, the pastries were mostly peach crisps that wouldn't spoil easily in winter. They hadn't changed much over the past 2 days. Knocking on the courtyard door, he heard voices. "Who is it?" "It's me. That sounds like Ah Shui. I'll go check." "Ah Shui. Qingzhang, make sure to thank him properly." "I know, Dad." Suddenly, a small head popped over the low wall. "Oh, it's water bro." Liang Qu raised the wooden box in his hand and shook it. "Shunzi, open the door. I've got treats for you." "Coming." Shunzi hopped off a stool, ran to open the gate, and rushed out. Liang Qu laughed, opened the box, and handed him a peach crisp. So sweet." Shunzi stuffed his mouth full, catching crumbs with his other hand, his face full of astonishment. Chen Qingzhang arrived at the door, his eyes widening at the sight of the Wu Fang Jai logo. "Ah Shui, why are you letting Shunzi eat something so expensive? What a waste." Chapter 49, I have a road in the Zhonghuai's eye. "Shunzi, quick, stop and give that back to your water bro. Do you know how expensive that stuff is before you just take it?" Chen Qingzhang rushed forward to snatch the peach crisp from Shunzi's hands, leaving the boy frozen in shock. Liang Qu stepped forward to block him. "Uncle Chen, what are you saying? The food's meant to be eaten, what difference does it make whose stomach it goes into? Are we really wasting it? Those rich folks eat it every day, and they've got the same eyes and mouths as we do. Can they even taste anything better than we can? Shunzi, don't be afraid. If I say you can eat it, then eat it. It's mine anyway, your dad can't control what's mine." "That's not the point. Shunzi, why are you so disobedient?" Chen Qingzhang shouted again, his voice louder this time out of frustration. Poor little Shunzi, standing there with a miserable expression, had already stopped eating the moment expensive was mentioned. He broke off the portion he'd bitten into and tried to return it to Liang Qu with both hands. Uncle Chen, if you keep this up, I'm not coming back next time. Liang Qu scolded. What's going on here? What's the yelling about? Qingzhong, what are you up to now? From inside, Chen Renqing had heard the commotion and thought the two were fighting. Draped in a jacket, he stormed out, immediately scolding Chen Qingzhong. Father, it's not, I didn't, Chen Qingzhong stammered, full of grievance and unable to defend himself, looking every bit like a reprimanded child. Oh, well, then never mind, Liang Qu laughed heartily. No big deal, Grandpa Chen. We weren't arguing, just joking around. I brought Shunzi some treats, and Uncle Chen got all worked up about it, so I had to use some muscle to stop him. Yes, exactly. Chen Renqing eyed him suspiciously. Really? Really? Liang Qu scooped Shunzi up with one arm and stuffed the peach crisp back into his hands. So, Uncle Chen, stop being so formal with me. When you get too polite, it just bugs me. Chen Renqing glanced at the 5 fragrance box Liang Qu was holding. Thinking about his honest son, he relaxed and waved them inside. Well, come on in then, it's cold out. And Qingzhong, what are you standing around for? Why are you so slow these days? Oh, right, come in, I'll grab some stools. Adi, pour some water. Liang Qu chuckled and shook his head. This family always seemed to one-up each other. Once inside, everyone found seats, and Chen Qingzhong dragged over a stove, shutting the door to keep the cold out. Gradually, the warmth spread as they gathered around the fire. Ah Shui, are you short on money? I've saved a little recently. Let me go grab it for you, Chen Qingzhong offered. This isn't about money. Uncle Chen, sit down. I don't lack funds. Have you paid off the clinic yet? Chen Qingzhong sighed. Not yet. It's been too cold to catch any fish, and we've had no extra money. Then it's settled. My loan isn't urgent. Today, I came to tell you 3 things and brought a little something for you all. Here, this, and this. Liang Qu placed the 5 fragrance box and a large paper package on the table, pushing them over. For us. Adi stared at the box in disbelief. She knew about 5 fragrance's reputation, it must have cost several taels of silver for a single box. Chen Qingzhong immediately waved his hands, protesting that it wasn't right. He had thought Liang Qu was just casually sharing a single piece of peach crisp, not giving away a whole box. Uncle Chen, don't speak yet, just listen to me first. Liang Qu cut him off before he could refuse. First, I've been accepted as a personal disciple by the headmaster of Pingyang Town's Yang Martial Arts School. You might not fully understand what that means, so I'll keep it simple. I don't have to pay to learn martial arts anymore. I get to study directly with Master Yang, unlike the regular paying students. This box of pastries is just a way to celebrate. When Shunzi gets a bit older and stronger, I can take him to the school with me. He won't have to pay either, Master Yang wouldn't mind for such a small matter. Second, I've brought some medicinal powder that I got from my senior brothers. It's for Grandpa Chen's injuries. Mix it with water and drink it twice a day for 2 days. 1 pack is enough to restore his vitality. Third, I've found a fishing spot in Zhonghuai wetlands where fish gather. Since I'll be busy training, I won't have much time to go out on the boat. I'd like Uncle Chen to help me fish there for a few days. We'll split the catch 50-50. That's about it. I'm done. He looked around at the Chen family, who sat in stunned silence as if their brains couldn't keep up with all the surprises. Any questions? Personal disciple. Yes. Shunzi can learn martial arts too. That's right. Isn't the medicine expensive? Not at all. It's very cheap. It truly was cheap. Liang Qu hadn't spent a single coin. The powder was made by grinding lotus roots into a paste and drying them. While not as effective as the best medicine, it was still good enough for Chen Renqing's recovery. The Chen family was left reeling from the good news, while Shunzi, by the stove, happily munched on his peach crisp, not fully understanding the conversation. All he knew was that the pastry was delicious and water bro was amazing. Of course I'll help with the fishing. If Shui's asking, there's no question about it. But as for the other two things, they're just. Stop. I know what you're going to say, Uncle Chen. If you keep it up, I'll leave. Don't give me this back and forth, I can't stand it. Chen Qingzhong's face turned red as he was cut off again, visibly uncomfortable with the exchange. Since Uncle Chen agreed to the fishing, everything settled. Liang Qu had thought this through long ago. On the one hand, it was a way to improve the Chen family's livelihood during the harsh winter when fish were scarce and debts were high. Giving them money directly wasn't an option with Uncle Chen's pride, so this was a practical way to help. On the other hand, it freed Liang Qu from pretending to go out on the boat every day. The fat catfish was efficient, but even it could only catch so much with its single mouth. If it teamed up with the immobile beast, they could surround fish schools underwater and let Chen Qingzhong cast the net above. It would drastically increase their efficiency, and splitting the catch 50-50 was fair for everyone. Chen Qingzhong was also trustworthy. Even if he stumbled upon something unusual, he'd keep it to himself. After all, plenty of people liked raising large crocodiles, it wasn't unheard of. After a long silence, Chen Qingzhong finally spoke. Shui, you've really made something of yourself. Indeed, Chen Renqing added. Something great, Di chimed in. Water bro is awesome, Shunzi shouted, finishing his peach crisp and brushing off the crumbs. Does this mean Shui might become a lord someday? Chen Renqing muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for his waistband to pull out his pipe, though he stopped himself upon noticing Liang Qu was still present. A lord. Such a distant, awe-inspiring word. Just thinking about their neighbor becoming one made the scar on Chen Renqing's back itch with warmth. So, take this box of 5 fragrance pastries. Don't worry about the money, it can wait. Pay off the clinic first. I'll come find you tomorrow, Uncle Chen, so don't go out on the boat. All right. Oh, one more thing, did you hear about the great demon the other night? Yes. Sounds like we'll need to hold a festival soon. Exactly. I might not be around for the next couple of days. Liang Qu took out 2 jian of silver and placed them on the table. If someone comes by to collect taxes, Sister Di, can you handle it for me? I asked Uncle Li Dekong, and 2 jian should be enough. Got it. Di nodded. She was often the one at home, as Chen Qingzhong was out fishing and Chen Renqing was selling baskets and cloth. They chatted for a while until Liang Qu prepared to leave. Just as he was about to step out, Chen Qingzhong suddenly spoke up. Shui, be careful if you're heading to town in the next few days. I heard some news this morning while selling fish, one of the martial artists in town was killed. Liang Qu's heart skipped a beat. A martial artist, do you know their name? I can't quite remember. It was something like. Chen Qingzhong furrowed. He was not a person who liked to ask questions, and he really couldn't remember it all of a sudden. You kid, why do you become so stupid when it comes to the critical moment? What can you accomplish? If you can't remember, don't eat today. Chen Renqing was so angry that he hit him on the back of the head with his pipe. Chen Qingzhong seemed to be hit on the head. Oh, I remember, his name is Liu Shaohui. Chapter 50, Scarlet Fire Morning Feather. Liu Shaohui is dead. Uncle Chen, are you sure that's the name? I'm sure, I wouldn't forget unless the person who told me made a mistake. Why, Shui, do you know him? Yeah, but we weren't close. There was some bad blood between us. Liang Qu returned home with a heavy heart. There were only 3 martial arts schools in the town, and martial artists were rare. It was unlikely there was another person with the exact same name. Liu Shaohui was less responsible than Hu Qi. During the conflict a few days ago, he had been utterly negligent, showcasing his disregard for duty. But as a substitute, there wasn't much that could be done about him. And now, he was dead. Had he died 2 days ago and only been discovered today, or did he die today? The thought lingered in Liang Qu's mind. Liu Shaohui hadn't been seen at the martial arts school in the past 2 days. The timeline matched. He'd left during the conflict and never returned. Even when Hu Qi went looking for him afterward, he was nowhere to be found. This was too much to ignore. The sun was still up. Liang Qu decided he had to check it out. Realizing this could be connected to him, Liang Qu borrowed a wooden bucket from Uncle Chen, lined it with wet hemp cloth, and placed a large beast's feather inside. With the bucket filled with water, he hurried toward Pingyang town. Whether it was for tonight's gathering or to let his senior brothers inspect the feather, he couldn't avoid going to town today. The situation was urgent. Liang Qu covered the 16-li journey in just over half an hour, straining his ears as he reached the streets. I heard he was a martial artist. To die in a rundown temple like that, how terrifying. No way, I heard he was just a fighter. Though he had broken through 3 barriers and was close to becoming a martial artist. Either way, he wasn't an ordinary person. But to die so horribly, with his organs completely hollowed out. The coroner said a monster might have eaten them. It definitely wasn't done by a human. A monster. That's terrifying. Are we next? You. Please, you're so skinny, even a monster would break its teeth trying to eat you. Every tea house and lodging shop buzzed with chatter about Lu Xiaohui's death. Liang Qu stopped a tea server. Excuse me, can you tell me which temple martial artist Lu was found in? Could you point the way? The server smiled. How about a cup of tea, sir? No tea, I'm in a hurry, Liang Qu replied, handing over 5 copper coins. Thank you, sir. The tea server slipped the money into his pouch and led Liang Qu to the street. Pointing to the distance, he said, see that Huang family's fabric shop? Yes. Go behind it. There's a small road. About 2 li ahead, you'll find a wide muddy path. That used to be the stone-paved road in front of the temple, but the stones were removed. Follow it for about a quarter hour, and you'll get there. Thanks. Not at all, sir. Drop by for tea sometime. Liang Qu didn't head straight to the temple. Instead, he diverted to his 3rd senior brother's smithy. Coincidentally, senior brother Lu's forge was on the way behind the Huang fabric shop, making it the perfect stop to ask about the mysterious feather. Senior brother Lu, junior brother Liang, you're here already. Don't tell me you changed your mind about the spearhead design. No, I found something while fishing last night. It's a bit tricky, and I thought you might know what it is. Tricky. Seeing Liang Qu holding the hemp-wrapped bundle, Lu Gang stepped away from the forge. Come inside. Inside the quiet room, Lu Gang shut the door and took the bundle. Even through the wet hemp cloth, he could feel the heat radiating from it. His eyebrows rose. This is seriously hot. Hee. Liang Qu helped unwrap the bundle, revealing a golden red feather that distorted the air with its intense heat. Lu Gang's pupils constricted. A crimson fire morning feather. You recognize it, senior brother. Lu Gang instinctively glanced at the door to confirm it was closed before whispering, where did you get this? Liang Qu recounted the events of 2 nights prior, omitting the part about the 2 beasts' battle and claiming he found it while fishing. Junior brother Liang, I don't know how to describe your luck, Lu Gang said with a sigh. Do you know the origin of this crimson fire morning feather? What is it? I can't tell what the water beast is, but the flaming bird you mentioned must be a crimson fire bird. Crimson fire birds are incredibly resilient. When faced with a life-threatening situation, they pour all their life essence into a few feathers, scattering them to flee. One of those feathers will contain the majority of its life essence, known as the crimson fire gold feather, which it uses to regenerate, similar to a lizard shedding its tail. Except it discards its entire body. And this feather of mine. Liang Qu's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Lu Gang chuckled. It's not the regenerative gold feather. If it were, we wouldn't even be able to approach it, let alone touch it. Ah, I see. Don't be disappointed. A crimson fire bird typically scatters only 10 to 20 feathers. Given its size, any of these feathers still contains a considerable portion of its life essence. What can it be used for? It can aid in cultivation, but I doubt you'll be able to absorb its energy. Fire-attributed life essence is too volatile. Unless you've broken through 3 barriers to the martial artist stage, I wouldn't recommend trying. Moreover, if the energy in the feather isn't utilized, it will dissipate quickly. I suggest channeling it all at once as fuel for forging a weapon. I'm 80% confident I can imbue the weapon with spiritual properties. Spiritual properties. It was the first time Liang Qu had heard of such a thing. Weapons with spiritual properties are exceedingly rare because materials like the crimson fire morning feather are incredibly hard to acquire. A fully grown crimson fire bird would require a martial artist at the perfection barrier stage to hunt it, and even then, it might take 2 or 3 working together since the bird can fly. The primary feature of spiritual weapons is their ability to self-repair and grow. If surrounded by similar materials, they can absorb them for repairs. A fingernail-sized chip might take only 10 days to heal. Even the best crafted weapons will wear down over time. Any fighter at your level will have equally formidable equipment, and it's easy for weapons to sustain damage during combat. Take your 4th senior brother, for example. He's replaced his sword countless times, and every time he pays, he tries to skimp. Lu Gang's usually calm tone carried an unusual note of exasperation. Then let's use it for my spear. Liang Qu decided immediately. The feather was already difficult for him to handle, let alone absorb its energy. It was better to use it wisely while it was still potent. Finding such a treasure was already a stroke of luck, and transforming it into a spiritual weapon was more than worth it. All right, I'll start preparing. Take a seat, junior brother. No need. I have other matters to attend to but will return shortly. Fair enough. Oh, by the way, do you know Liu Xiaohui, senior brother? Liu Xiaohui. I think I've heard of him. Isn't he one of our school's fighters? 2 barriers, if I recall. Lu Gang pondered briefly. As a smith, he rarely needed to earn money by taking shifts at the martial arts school, so he had only a vague impression. Yes, that's him. But if you're not familiar, never mind. Why? What happened? He's dead. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.